That's the criticism that's been made, that they were rather slow off the mark. Personally, I think it's more important to get the right focus for your inquiries and your investigation. Secondly, I think people don't realise in a large organisation that it's actually quite hard to establish exactly what you do know, what you're aware of, and what the likely parameters of an investigation need to be. So I have some sympathy. Here's a new man on the job, and he's trial by fire. Well, I think the Newsnight investigation of the reasons why and the circumstances in which the investigation or the programme on Savile was called off, I mean, that they ought to be able to do, I would have thought, fairly fast. It's a question of establishing some facts. The culture, was the BBC tolerant of practices which shouldn't have been permitted? That, I think, is pretty open-ended and could be a lot harder, I think, to come, first of all, to define its limits, and secondly, to come to conclusions. I mean, my experience as a governor of the BBC was that Newsnight in particular had good editorial control, and it was a tough programme. So I don't assume that what they've said about themselves is necessarily not accurate, or not indeed necessarily the whole story. We'll see, and it needs to be established. Secondly, we are talking about something that's historical. This goes back a long way, and quite a lot of the people who will have been involved are no longer going to be around or in office, or indeed there to lose positions. I have a feeling that we need to be careful as a society, not to try to open up in the past in a way which actually means that we're constantly in investigation and accusatory mode about past conduct. I think it's clear that what Jimmy Savile was up to is quite unacceptable, egregious behaviour, and wrong. No argument about it. I think it took place, however, against a background where harassment of women in the workplace was much more widespread and much more implicitly not accepted but tolerated in a way that we would not regard as being right or proper now, and indeed women would not do so. But I suspect some of the women who were troubled by him, harassed by him, or even worse, didn't actually say anything about it at the time. Some clearly did, but I think some did not, which is symptomatic, I think, of what was regarded by women as something they had to put up with, and men as something, well, that happens. I mean, this is a difficult moment. Clearly it doesn't do an organisation like the BBC any good, but I bet you there are other broadcasters around the world who may well have similar stories to tell.